I walked into my bedroom and froze. My little sister stood there, wearing my wedding dress, the one I'd saved for, dreamed about, promised myself would never be touched by anyone but me. And dangling from her ears was my grandmother's pearl necklace, the heirloom meant for me on my wedding day. She didn't look guilty. She smiled. "It looks better on me anyway, Mom agrees." My chest tightened like I couldn't breathe. My parents appeared in the doorway, arms folded, nodding as if her theft was nothing more than a sweet sisterly moment. That was the moment something inside me snapped. My name is Evelise Montgomery, and for 34 years, I've been the daughter who kept the peace, the sister who gave in, the one who swallowed every unfairness. But standing there, watching them bless my sister as a co-bride in my own wedding, I realized, this time, I wasn't going to step aside. The late afternoon light slipped through the sheer curtains, striking the mirror in my bedroom like a spotlight. That's when I saw her, Emery, spinning slowly, the hem of my wedding dress grazing the floor as if it already belonged to her. Around her neck glimmered my grandmother's pearls, the heirloom promised to me on the day I said my vows. She didn't flinch at being caught. She tilted her head, smiled at her reflection, and said with breezy confidence, "It looks better on me anyway." My throat went dry. Before I could form words, the sound of shifting footsteps made me turn. My parents stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold like it was the most natural thing in the world. They didn't scold her, didn't demand she take the dress off. Instead, my mother's voice carried that familiar, placating tone, the one that always meant my feelings were secondary. "You'll still have the main gown, sweetheart. Emery just wants to feel special too." My father added a dismissive nod, as though my outrage was nothing but childish fussing. The room seemed to tilt. It wasn't just a dress, it was mine. Chosen after months of fittings, paid for with my own savings, guarded in the back of my closet like a secret I wanted to savor, and now it was draped across Emery's shoulders as if she had earned it, with my parents blessing her theft. Heat surged through me, years of quiet resentment breaking open all at once. My voice came out lower than I expected, sharp enough to slice the air. "Take it off, now, or this wedding is over before it begins." The smirk slid from Emery's face. Her eyes flashed with disbelief before hardening into something darker. She yanked the pearls from her neck and hurled them into my palm. "Fine!" she spat, each syllable dripping with venom. "I didn't want your stupid dress anyway." Silence crashed over us, thick and suffocating. My parents' faces hardened, their disappointment directed not at the daughter stealing, but at the daughter daring to draw a line. Emery stormed past me, the satin of the gown whispering against my skin as she brushed by. I stood rooted to the spot, the weight of the pearls biting into my hand. The room smelled faintly of dust and fabric, but beneath it lingered something sharper, the scent of betrayal, fresh and raw. In that frozen moment, I knew this wasn't about a dress. This was the opening crack in something much larger, a fracture that had been waiting for years to split wide open. The knock at the door was unannounced, like it always was. My parents breezed into the apartment as if it belonged to them, a stranger trailing behind with a stiff smile and a leather binder tucked under her arm. Before I could ask a single question, my mother was clearing off our coffee table, flipping open the binder with a flourish. Across the first page, written in bold, were the words that made my stomach pitch: "Emery Montgomery, co-bride." Daniel leaned forward, eyes narrowing, his knuckles whitening around the arm of the couch. My voice caught in my throat. For a long moment, all I could do was stare at the page as if by refusing to blink, the words would rearrange themselves into something less absurd. My mother, in her calmest hostess tone, explained. "In the South, there's a tradition of sisters sharing the spotlight, a double wedding. It's unique, memorable. Everyone will talk about it." My father nodded, as if it was the most reasonable thing in the world, his eyes darting over our furniture, already calculating what it cost. Daniel's voice broke the silence, sharp and disbelieving. "This is insane!" I excused myself to the kitchen, my hands trembling as I grabbed my phone. A quick search through my inbox confirmed what I had feared. Dozens of emails between my parents and the venue, none of which I'd been copied on. Special instructions to create 2 bridal suites, requests for the photographer to balance shots of both sisters, notes to ensure that Emery's presence would be just as prominent as mine. When I came back, my face must have said it all. My father didn't flinch. "We're paying for half this wedding," he said, his voice hard and final. "We have a say in how it unfolds." The binder sat between us, its glossy pages reflecting the tension in the room. Daniel's hand found mine, squeezing tight, but it did little to steady the rush of anger and betrayal roaring in my ears. A week later, the fallout was everywhere. Emery's Instagram post showed her in a white gown, captioned with a glittery font, "Double bride, double love." The comments exploded. Hundreds of likes, streams of congratulations from friends and extended family who assumed I had agreed to this spectacle. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages. "So happy for you both." And, "Didn't know you two were engaged at the same time. So sweet." I hadn't even caught my breath from that when the local talk show aired the clip. Emery sat under the warm studio lights, her mascara perfectly smudged for effect. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue, her voice quivering as she told the host, "I just wanted to share in my sister's joy, but she's being so selfish. She won't let me have this one moment with her." My coffee went cold as I watched, fury mixing with disbelief. My phone lit up again, this time with relatives calling, their voices layered with judgment. "Why are you shutting Emery out? Family is supposed to stick together." The next morning, my boss summoned me into her office. She didn't even bother to close the door before pulling up Emery's interview on her computer screen. "Clients are talking," she said flatly. "This circus, whatever it is, needs to stay out of the studio. We sell perfection, not family soap operas." Her words landed like a stone in my gut. For the first time, I realized the battle I thought I was fighting inside my family had spilled far beyond it. This wasn't just about my dress, my wedding, or even my sister anymore. It was about my name, my reputation, my career. The life I had built for myself now hanging by a thread because my family refused to let me have a moment that was mine alone. The air in my grandmother's apartment in Savannah carried the faint spice of cinnamon, mingled with the soft musk of old books. Family photos crowded the walls, faces across generations, some smiling, some stiff with secrets. I sat on her floral sofa, my voice breaking as I tried to explain the chaos my parents and Emery had stirred up. Grandma Geneva listened quietly, her weathered hands folded in her lap when I finally ran out of words. She sighed, her eyes clouding with something heavier than sympathy. "Your mother did the same thing once," she said softly. "She wore white to your Aunt Lydia's wedding, insisted on standing beside her for photos. From that day forward, they didn't speak. 40 years. Evelise. 40 years lost." The words sank into me like stones. I realized I wasn't just trapped in a fight with my sister. I was caught in a cycle that had poisoned our family for generations. She rose slowly, her knees creaking, and walked to an old cedar chest at the foot of her bed. The hinges groaned as she lifted the lid, reaching deep inside. She returned with a thick folder bound in worn leather, setting it carefully on my lap. "These," she said, tapping the documents with a frail finger, "are the deeds to the family home and the trust. You are co-owner and the executor of the estate. I've watched for years as they tried to strip you of what was yours. I will not let them take everything from you the way they did to Lydia." I held the papers in my hands, the weight of them heavier than any jewel or dress. For the first time, I felt something solid beneath my feet, proof that I wasn't powerless, that this time the story didn't have to end the same way. That night, back in Charleston, the glow of my laptop lit up our small living room. Daniel sat beside me, jaw clenched, his arm wrapped tightly around my shoulders. Marisol spread her legal pad across the coffee table, scribbling notes in quick, precise lines. Lucas leaned over his tablet, fingers flying across the screen. We weren't just talking anymore. We were planning. Passwords to every vendor account were changed. Two-factor authentication added. Lucas smirked as he typed, "They won't sneak through the back door again." Marisol read aloud the timeline she'd drafted, a record of every boundary violation since the engagement began. "If this escalates, you'll have the documentation." Daniel squeezed my hand, his voice firm. "We'll cover the costs ourselves. No more strings attached." For the first time, I wasn't facing this alone. Then Lucas's brow furrowed. "You're not going to like this." He turned his screen toward us. My heart dropped. Emery's name appeared on a boutique order form, except she had used mine. She had booked a fitting for my main wedding gown, pretending to be me. It was more than stealing fabric now. It was my identity, my name, my place as the bride. Every part of me was under siege. But this time, I wasn't the helpless daughter being told to share. I was surrounded by people ready to fight beside me. And with that, something shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't preparing to endure. I was preparing to strike back. The pressure came at me from every direction. Letters from my parents' church arrived in stacks, each one quoting the same verse in neat cursive handwriting, "Honor thy father and mother." The message was clear. If I didn't bend, I was disobedient, ungrateful, unworthy. Then Emery went live on Instagram, her voice breaking with rehearsed sobs. "All I wanted was to share in my sister's happiness," she told thousands of viewers, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "But she's shutting me out, being so cruel." My phone rang with cousins I hadn't spoken to in years, accusing me of selfishness, telling me family should come first. I felt cornered, humiliated, until anger steadied me. That night, I sat at my desk and pulled out the evidence I had kept tucked away. I posted a carousel of photos, my designer heels before Emery scuffed them. Then after, ruined beyond repair. My vintage purse, pristine. Then smeared with her lipstick. My cashmere sweater stretched beyond shape. A custom jacket ruined with red wine. And finally, the image that sealed the truth. Emery wearing my wedding dress and my grandmother's pearls, smiling like she had already claimed what wasn't hers. My caption was simple. "A bride deserves respect. Not your co-bride." Within hours, the hashtag spread like wildfire. Comments poured in, thousands of strangers rallying behind me. And by morning, a national bridal magazine had published an article praising me as the bride who reclaimed her boundaries, Evelise Montgomery. For the first time, I wasn't just defending myself. I was seizing the narrative and taking it back, piece by piece. When the invitation came from my parents, it was wrapped in false sweetness, dinner at their house, just to make peace. I knew better, but I went anyway, because some battles require walking straight into enemy territory. The dining room glowed under the golden chandelier, the table set with polished silverware and roast beef steaming in the center. My mother's eyes glistened as she looked across the table at me. "Emery only wants to try on the dress one more time. Darling, for the memories." My father's voice followed, steady and insistent. "We just want to see both our daughters happy on your wedding day." Emery pressed her lips together, feigning modesty, her voice small and trembling. "Just once more, please. One last time, sis." I let the silence stretch, then nodded. "Fine." The room brightened instantly. Emery slipped into my gown, the pearls swinging once more against her throat, her eyes triumphant. My parents exchanged proud smiles, convinced I had finally given in, but as they basked in their illusion of victory. I raised my phone, my finger pressing the shutter again and again. Each click captured the truth they thought they had hidden. Emery parading in what was mine, with their blessing. I smiled across the table, calm and collected. Inside, I was already cataloging the photos, knowing exactly how and when I would use them. This wasn't surrender. This was bait, and I had just secured the knockout blow. The morning of my wedding broke sharp and bright, but inside the venue in Charleston, the air was already thick with tension. Guests had only just begun to arrive, their voices echoing faintly in the marble foyer, when I spotted the familiar cluster of figures commanding the room. My parents stood at the front desk, Emery beside them in a white gown cut almost identical to mine. Her arms folded smugly across her chest, as if she'd been waiting for her cue to step into the spotlight. My father's voice boomed across the lobby. "There will be 2 brides today. Prepare a second ceremony entrance." He slapped a contract on the counter, his finger jabbing at the paper. "If you don't honor this agreement, we'll pursue breach of contract." My mother hovered at his side, her hands fluttering, urging the coordinator to make adjustments quickly, as if this spectacle had always been the plan. Emery tilted her chin high, the satin shimmering under the lights, every inch of her screaming entitlement. The staff froze, uncertain, the room's hum dropping into uneasy silence. Then the heavy doors swung open, and I walked in with Daniel at my side and Lucas's team stationed like sentinels just behind us. Their presence, sharp suits, steady stares, made the entire lobby go still. Every eye turned toward me as I stopped at the center of the room. My voice carried, unwavering, slicing through the silence. "There will be no sister ceremony. I am the bride, the only bride." The words landed like a thunderclap. My father's face flushed scarlet. My mother's hands trembled, and for once, Emery's mouth fell open, struck dumb by the shock of being publicly denied. The staff exhaled, as if someone had finally restored order to chaos. And then, through the stunned hush, came the sound of measured footsteps. My grandmother, Geneva, emerged from the back of the hall, her spine straight despite her age, her hand reaching for mine. Without hesitation, I placed my palm in hers. She clasped it firmly, her eyes locking with mine, then guided me toward the bridal suite. The symbolism was not lost on anyone watching. It was not my father, not my mother, not my sister who had the right to stand beside me. It was the one person who had truly protected me all along. As the doors closed behind us, I felt the balance of power shift for good. For the first time in my life, the day was mine, and mine alone. The reception pulsed with music and laughter, but beneath the sparkle of chandeliers, there was a current of unease. I caught sight of Emery inching toward the DJ booth, her dress trailing as she prepared to grab the microphone. Before she could reach it, Daniel's best man stepped smoothly into her path, his smile polite but unyielding. She froze, frustration flashing in her eyes. At the same time, my mother leaned toward the wedding planner, her voice pitched just loud enough for me to hear. "Let Emery speak. It's tradition." The planner shook her head firmly, flipping through her clipboard. "Not in this contract." I walked to the center of the room, lifting my glass. The chatter dimmed. "To those who respect boundaries," I said, my gaze sweeping to Daniel, Marisol, Lucas, and my grandmother Geneva. I didn't glance at the family table. Their absence in my toast was louder than any words. Then I unlocked my phone, the screen glowing in my hand. With one tap, the album went live. Photos of Emery in my wedding dress, my grandmother's pearls hanging at her throat, and screenshots of my parents' emails to the venue demanding a co-bride ceremony. Within moments, notifications flooded in, guests whispering as their phones buzzed. Heads bent together, murmurs spread like wildfire. The final blow came fast, vendor after vendor posting in real time. "We only take direction from Evelise Montgomery, the bride." Across the room, Emery collapsed into her chair, her face pale, eyes wide with disbelief. My parents sat stone still, stunned into silence. The truth was no longer mine to carry. It was public, undeniable, and absolute. The battle that had consumed me for months ended right there, with no escape left for them. 6 months later, our new house in Asheville was wrapped in the colors of fall, crimson leaves drifting across the wooden porch. Daniel and I settled into a rhythm of quiet mornings and evenings untouched by interference. Grandma Geneva had moved nearby, her laughter filling our kitchen every Sunday dinner. My work flourished, and a bridal magazine ran a feature calling me the bride who reclaimed her boundaries. Then a package arrived on our doorstep. Inside lay my childhood diary, its purple cover faded, a slip of paper tucked between the pages, in my father's unmistakable hand. Perhaps we should have listened. I placed the diary on the shelf, not to forget, but to remember. Some things can be shared, but self-respect, that can never be given away.